warming funeral I could have imagined. I mean, it was just, it was life-changing to be there, and to feel the reverence, to feel the ability to let go, and just completely, you know, all these little places that I had felt so perfectly holy, and that's his place. Out of here, you know, on to the next incarnation. It felt very much like this great thing of preserving him mixed with a movement out of the old pattern that was extremely fast and a little bit jarring, but I got it afterward. You know? So we'd been there, that was our third visit, and we'd been there each time for a few weeks, and that time we'd been there for a week, and the day before there was what I don't know, was this Michael Eisman's word? We call them the diamond people. You know, very, very, the people who are, you know, who obviously are very wealthy people. But there were a group of people, small group, 3 or 4 people who were allowed in the day before he died, and Balu said to us, come. So we went in, and, you know, we saw his feet. He was lying.
Okay.
We sat, we saw his feet, and then we were escorted out. But then, and then the next morning, or whatever time it was, he died. He'd been sick for a while. We were warned when we went that he may not make it. Last time this was played was in 20 years ago when Vic showed these here, and I found them in a box that said Shankar's funeral. So they haven't been touched. The machinery archaic, but it seems to work. So here we go. If it's not in focus, someone can help me with that. So these were taken all in '94, and this was before Shankar died, but we were there and we couldn't see him because he was so sick. We finally saw him for about 5 minutes the day before he died. But this is what we were doing until we saw Shankar. We got very, very attached to the elephant mahouts. Because when Shankar wasn't available, we had a lot of time to spend with them.
Has everyone in here received
Elaine with curls. What?
Has everyone in here received the blessing from the elephant?
I can't hear you, I'm sorry. So Sita Ma, those times when no one could see him, she would just sit outside, the place where she always sat and wait and meditate and just sit. But otherwise it was very empty because he hadn't seen anybody for, a few weeks. So these are just scenes around the ashram until the Mut. So then we went to the Ramana ashram, and we didn't want to stay there, and we came back. And early the next morning we went to the Mut again just to see, maybe we could see Shankara, and we saw this. So now this is the day he had died. Early that morning, and so now what you're going to see, I don't have to say anymore, it's just, this is what the pictures they took that day. A few of the many pictures he took. But it was very strange to walk up to the Mut and see soldiers. We didn't know what had happened, if there had been something horrible. But So people started lining up. And this was the scene. There were many, many Indian TV stations. There were many changes of, and you'll see them as you go through these. I don't need to talk all the time, but many changes of, they would put different offerings on him, pour yogurt on him or honey, and then close the curtains and obviously clean his body and put fresh silks on his body and fresh flowers, and then open the curtains and then go through another ritual. And this went on all day.
Elaine, is that his body there? I can't.
Yes.
That's Shankar's,
That is
yes,
his
that's
body.
Shankar's
Under
body.
the- and
He's
the
got a
face.
cloth under his chin, and he's sitting in meditation posture. Yes, and he's not alive, but he was very alive. The atmosphere was very alive. There were 250,000 people there that day, they said,
Wow.
by the time the day ended.
That's why all the police presence.
Here's Bala.
Is that Bob?
In the middle,
Yeah.
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 You see the younger Shankaracharya in the back on the right.
Yes.
The one who's holding.
The
Balu was just sort of paralyzed. He was so stricken looking all that day. Remember Balu, the one he's on the far left?
Yeah.
I think that's his name, right, Tim?
Yeah.
Balu?
Yeah.
He was just,
still there.
Yeah,
and then
he's
for
actually-
days he just acted, he was just in a state of shock. If you want me to go faster or slower, just say so. A lot of music all day, a lot of dancing. Oh, you see back here? See if I can go backwards. People were sitting there in, watching what these are the people who are part of the Mut, who were allowed to stay all day, and they let us stay too. And they were reading newspapers about the experience while they were there. It was pretty amazing, because you see the newspaper in the front. I stood in that spot for about 10 hours. So there are all these people like these are people standing and staying, and then there was this constant line of people going through. Just going through and then leaving. both hung in there. And there, curves, I think.
This is still.
Honey. Or ghee, maybe. Maybe it's ghee. I think there was both honey and ghee. We were very moved ourselves by the deep outpouring of grief and also a kind of joy that came with it that was very strong all day. And I think that Vic was just captivated by all the people who were around Shankar's body and just kept coming and changing. So now, oh yes, that's what's happening here. They're beginning to lift his body, and they're going to take it to the place where he was actually buried in gems and herbs and precious stones, and not cremated. So the building that for years they'd been saying Shankar's going to live there, and we'd think he's not going to. What are they thinking? He's not going to live there. So as soon as he died, that's where he went, to that new building that had been going up for 3 or 4 years. So here, they're carrying his body overhead, precariously tipped around, sort of in the middle there, under the grid.
Oh yeah.
Yes. I think this is already, Vic couldn't get down to the place, to the burial, and I think this is already the next morning. That's what it looks like. The next morning, everything had changed.
So, Elaine, what are we looking at now? Elaine,
What is that?
What are we looking
That's
at
his,
now?
that's where he's buried in there, under there.
Oh,
That's that new building, that was kind of across the alley. Across the alley, that building was going on for a long time. And then there was a place where you could open these doors to the outdoors, and people could sit outdoors and see, and this was the burial site. And then all the things that were around the palanquin got moved. They were all moved the next day into this building. This is kind of the side area of the building where he was buried. And in there are slippers and the few things that a few objects, ritual objects and things. I think there's pictures, yeah. See the slippers at the bottom?
Yeah.
Made of wood. With roses on.
I think that clock was, stopped.
Stop.
His glasses. And this is the beginning. They were already dismantling the place where the palanquin had been and where audiences were, and many of the attendants were. I can't remember the name of the attendant with his name started with a J. We used to call him Swami Foghorn. Very piercing voice. He might be in some of these images, but he and Balu they just sat around for days. So they were moving everything out. They were in there with sledgehammers, with automatic.
Jackhammer.
What's the word I want?
Jackhammer. Jackhammer.
That's it. So you can see the palanquin. There's two palanquins in there. You know, they were moving everything out.
That's where he would sit.
And most of the people were at the place where he was buried, and then a few stragglers would hang around here like us and the attendants. So, and that's it. Yeah, and there are many, many more.
Okay.
But my husband did. I didn't. My husband did. He was the photographer at that time, and yeah, we have a lot. I have a lot of photos. I also brought, if you want to see them later, if there's time, I brought albums.
And when you were there.
Did we talk to Shankar? A little bit. I mean, he asked where we were from, and not very. I think the most was the time when we were with Michael and Harry. That was the most verbal that he was. 3 years after that, in '93, he was less verbal, and in '94, we didn't see him. In '93, you could only go in a couple of hours a day. It was much different than it had been in '91 when we sat all day. I mean, most of the people in this room did. When they went, they sat all day. So, I mean, Michael might remember some of the things he said. My husband was cremated in the silk cloth that Shankar gave him. He gave us silk cloths, and I thought, these beautiful golden silk, and I thought, he gave them to everyone. There were a few of us there on that visit, and I thought, what could this possibly be for? And then when my husband was dying, I realized what it was for. And so I have mine. My kids know where it is,
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was an amazing thing.
Wow.
Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Gurave Sarvalokanam, Bhishade Bhavaroginam, Nidhaye Sarva Vidyanam, Dakshina